runs pretty sweet. Considering it's been off the road for 2 years.
Take yourself back to 2018. You could buy a Saxo VTS, MOT'd, running, on the road for well under £1,000. If you wanted a VTR, you could probably get one MOT'd on the road for about £500. To be honest, the 106 GTI, that was already starting to creep up in price, and I needed a cheap runabout. So I was looking around all the usual places that you would go to find a cheap car. I still, despite owning numerous Citroens and Peugeots in the past, decided to have a look around Google. I had a look on YouTube. And I was really shocked to see that there was very minimal content in regards to the Citroen Saxo, especially the VTRs and the VTSs. And we're talking about back in 2018, and at that point forums were already pretty much dead, and Facebook, that had groups, but the posts just made me feel sad. So there it was, a plan was hatched. Why not film my life with the Saxo VTS and become one of those world famous inspirational vloggers or influencers, whatever they're called. I even bought myself an action cam. And a gimbal. But ultimately what I did was absolutely nothing with the Saxo. I think it's been parked up since about 2019, unused, just sitting there decaying. So that's what this video is, a completely stripped back to basic, low production value video of me fixing the Saxo. So this is pretty much how the car was, including the missing headlight. It had been parked up because I'd lost the key for it. In this video we're just going to have a quick little look around it from the outside. As you can see, it's actually not in bad condition. It's got a bit of lacquer peel on the roof. It's been used to store junk. A little cheeky peek at my 106 Rally there. Again, another picture of the lacquer peel. Actually, coding a key wasn't too difficult with using Divebox, which is a newer version of Lexia. Fortunately, the car came with its key code, which made programming the immobiliser transponder on the new key very easy. The interior on this is a bit of a weird one. It seems to be a bit of a mix of base model 106/Saxo with some 106 GTI bits, and I think Saxo VTR door cards. You can see here what an absolute state the car had gotten itself into from being sat for so long. One of the first things I replaced in this car was the power steering pump. Unfortunately, the scrapyard I went to only had one from the newer Saxo. It didn't have the remote filler, but fortunately I managed to make everything fit. A really common place for the Saxo and the 106 to rust is here on the inner arch. As you can see, the driver's side one, or what's known as the right, is actually in really good condition. However, when we go over to the passenger side, near side left, whichever you want to call it, you can see a massive big hole. This filled me with dread, if I'm honest. But the car ran, and apart from the slightly noisy alternator belt, it ran pretty well. Listen to that induction roar. But that's not the real reason I filmed this bit. What it is when I refitted the power steering pump, the main hose, previously, I think it's had a replacement pump at some point, was all held in by cable ties. So, you know, spending an extra half hour to make sure everything all lines up and goes in the correct places, it just looks better, doesn't it? So whereas I run off chaos, coffee, hopes and dreams, I'm fortunate enough to have a very organised girlfriend. So I took a leaf out of her book and decided to write a to-do list. First step, jack up your car and then look in your wheel arch. Step 3, admire your rusty brakes, wishbones and drive shaft. And finally, revel in the beauty of your gorgeous, stunning, snapped coil spring. I then took off the strut and the wishbone, and this gave me a good opportunity to actually look inside the wheel arch and see what kind of condition it's in. As you can see, actually it's not too bad. The underseal's done a good job. In certain places it's started to crack and peel. You can see that the bumper support on this mount is absolutely perfect, which is a very good thing when it comes to a Saxo. Wishbone off, a little bit of paint, nothing fancy, just your normal primer. It's just going to be a normal spray can matte black that's going to go onto it. So this is pretty much where things started getting out of hand. I used the wire wheel, twist knot wheel on an angle grinder just to remove the underseal and to clean up any of the rust. So what I did is I removed any flaky rust, anything that was still somewhat solid, ground that back to as clean as I possibly can, ready to put some of the FE123 from rust.co.uk onto it, as that's a really good product for dealing with rust. What it won't deal with though is this bumper support mount on the near side has completely rotten away. So it started getting dark at this point. As you can see, I'm starting to work with the torch, and it's been filmed with a Samsung S20 camera phone, and just some of the colours aren't quite picked up. But in this clip, you can see that I've cleaned up as much as I can of bits and pieces and started to apply the FE123 rust converter. So there's still more work to be done up in the suspension turrets. However, due to the time of day, as you can see I'm working from a torch, I didn't want to be too much of an annoyance by having the angle grinder running to neighbours and residents nearby. So it was then when I decided to call it a night. So the next day, the rust converter had done its magic overnight. In these pictures, it's looking a lot more rust coloured. In fact, it was more of a black, slightly purple colour. For some reason, this is what the camera's picked up. So then it was time to put on some paint. I brush painted some epoxy mastic 121, again sold by rust.co.uk, onto it. I chose a grey colour because that's what I had left in my garage. It's a 2-pack paint, it's very good, it's also very nasty. You're supposed to wear masks and all kinds for it. I've actually read about people passing out and ending up in hospital from inhaling the stuff, so if you are going to go for it, make sure you follow the correct safety precautions. Now these are really good. These are called clean and strip discs or polycarbide discs. You can get them from Screwfix or Toolstation, and they're really good because they remove rust, paint, varnishes even, but they don't heat up the metal, they don't damage the metal, they don't scratch it or anything like that. They are so good, and they're an absolute lifesaver when doing this kind of project. The plan is to overpaint the epoxy mastic with some kind of stone chip. You can use it as a top coat, but I think it's always good to add an extra layer of protection. So while it's drying, let's have a look at the other side. As you can see, it looks pretty bad. There's quite a lot of flaky rust there, but with going over it with a clean strip disc, I managed to get it quite clean and feather back to some clean metal. So that will of course be treated with the rust converter, but obviously we've got to do something about those holes. So I took the wing off to have a closer look, and that is bad. I think they're also made out of unobtainium as well, so we're going to have to think of some way of fixing that. So the next step will be to clean these bits of rust as best I can with the twisted knot wheel and the clean and strip disc. Unfortunately it started to wear out by the time I got to here, but that's as far as we've got so far. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you did, let me know. If you didn't, let me know.